Oh boy, let's get into the mood of it. I just had a cup of coffee that tasted like a cannoli. If I could have just had a little nip of whiskey in it, it would have been perfect, divine. But you know, I'll just stay with Coffee Mate for right now because we are about to record another podcast episode. Welcome to Gently Read, the podcast where we, as an I, your host, Aurora Fenzl, talk about anything and everything surrounding the romance genre, including our benefactress, Jane Austen, or more contemporary titles like Bridgerton, or projects that are coming up in the Jane Austen Society of North America, or anything that touches on like cosplaying or costuming, or projects that inspire people that stem from this genre. So again, I hope you stay with us and thank you for listening. Welcome to Gently Read, the podcast. I'm your host, Aurora Fenzl, this podcast, which is now my creative, nerdy, vibing outlet. I am full on in my fixated creative workflow right now. So let's just get into this episode. So this episode is going to be just a little bit different than my other episodes previous. So this is a joint mission, my friends. It's like the Navy giving the Marines a piggyback ride, or farmers dancing with the ranchers' daughters. So we are going to be not only including this episode in the podcast, I am also adapting a paper for one of my communications classes into this episode. So let's get into it. All right, first off, what even is uses and gratification theory? This is the workhorse. This is the boat I am putting all my eggs into right now for this episode. Uses and gratifications theory by this guy called Kratz. His last name is Kratz. He's a professor at somewhere at the University of Jerusalem, somewhere over there. And he wrote most of his work in the 1940s, and he also wrote some stuff in the 70s. And I am going to be talking about his theory and how it relates to, guess what, our topic of the podcast, romance novels. Huzzah! Academic bullshit meets romance novels. Oh, love this. Love my job. I'm not getting paid. Sad day. So you don't care or want to know about uses and gratifications. Thought you could listen to a fun romance cottagecore aesthetic audio to vibe to while you're eating your girl dinner of Dino Nuggets, Ritz crackers, mac and cheese, and Prosecco? You thought wrong. You are going to learn something today, bitches. Some of my favorite bitches are communications majors anyway. Sarah, I love you. So uses and gratifications theory is, in layman's terms, is that humans consume media for different reasons. Those reasons are to fulfill the needs they have. On this podcast, we have established that women have needs. And from extensive research in the romance genre, I have educated myself that men also have needs, allegedly. Again, also, this man named Maslow is amongst them. Today, I'm not talking about the hierarchy of needs. This show is about uses and gratifications, or uses and grats, as the cool kids say. Or maybe just me. He made history. This Katz guy made history and, I guess, quote, saved the science of communication studies by asking the question of, quote, what do people do with media? And guess what, guys? Romance novels are a type of media. So in this space, we reject the notion that media affects everyone in the same way. So this is going back to the model of thinking called uniform effects model. So basically that model says that media will affect people in the same way every time. No. So people seek out these pieces of media to gratify their needs. Media will compete for your attention and time, and media affects different people differently, and people can accurately report their media use and motivations, which is great if you're doing research. And also that with this media, it's developed parasocial relationships with fake fantasy friends. You know, like book boyfriends, yeah, that's a parasocial relationship. All right, we're learning things already. Good work, everyone. I'm so proud of us. So there is also this typology within uses and gratification theory. So it basically breaks down into the little different parts of how and why people use media in general. I'm still talking in the general sense of media. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty little details of romance novels and uses and grats a little later on in the episode, but just hang with me, stay with me. This is just the intro. So again, the typology is passing time, companionship, escape, enjoyment, social interaction. Like, to explain social interaction, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day where she's like, yeah, I don't really play video games, but the only time I really play video games is when I'm spending time with my brother, or when she's like with other people in a party setting, like playing Mario Kart with multiple players in the same room, that kind of thing. And you also have relaxation and information and excitement. Yes, I also, read books for excitement. So these 5 elements of uses and grats, and also going off of this Lundberg and Holton writing from 1968 model, in particularly may be singled out for comment. So just another little list here. The audience is conceived of as active. The audience is participating. They are not just, vegetables on the couch like a lot of people would think, people who are consuming media. We're not just lugs. We are actively engaged. In the mass media communications process, which the initiative in linking need, gratification, and media choice lies with the audience member. So this goes hand in hand with the fact that we choose what kind of media we are consuming and participating with. Like, I can choose to play a video game versus picking up a book and reading it. I can choose to turn on a television if I can find one on this campus. Or I can, choose to stare and watch paint dry. Media competes with other sources of need satisfaction. Here's the deal. I don't always have to be reading a book. I don't always have to be playing a video game. I can fulfill my needs of, entertainment by, say, going to watch the women's hockey team. Or I can go, I don't know. This is showing how introverted I am. There's not a ton of stuff that I do go out and do in person with other people. Oh gosh, I'm being exposed. But yeah, there's lots of other things. Like, I could pick up a paintbrush and paint something. I could, cross stitch. I could, I don't know, put my camera on a tripod and take selfies of myself. That whole thing. Or use social media. There are lots of choices. of things to do alongside, generally taking care of oneself. It's a lot of work taking care of yourself as a human. Like, you have to feed yourself, you have to wake up, you have to sleep, you have to, keep things clean, hygiene, and, your laundry. Oh my God, I still have to fold my socks and underwear. Oh, great. Anyway, so moving on. So methodically speaking, many of the goals of mass media can be derived from data supplied by individual audience members themselves. For example, people are sufficiently self-aware to be able to report their interests and motives. Again, great thing, because when doing research on animals or whatever, they can't exactly tell you the motivation of why they did the behavior. And that's the great thing about, just learning about other humans, is that we are able to report and say, yeah, I did this thing and this is why. And also, this little segment here, I was just a little confused about, and I forgot to put it in the email to my professor. But hey, we're going to move on. So value judgments about the cultural significance of mass communication should be suspended while audience orientations are explored on their own terms. It is from the perspective of the assumption that certain affinities and contrasts between the uses and gratifications approach and much speculative writing about popular culture may be considered. Again, I was just a little suspicious about this because I wasn't quite sure what it was telling me. Because again, I pulled this directly from the text, directly from one of Kratz's papers that he was writing in the 70s. So, we're just gonna, move on. Number 2, this academic report from the International Journal of Literature Studies was a real banger. Okay, so I was, initially doing research. I had this little spark of inspiration. How am I going to turn these uses and gratifications into an episode that fits my podcast? And I found this article. These people running this study of college girlies who read romance claim reasons motivating the participants in the study to read romance is grouped into, these themes. And these themes are alignment of interest, entertainment, social influence, educational value, and therapeutic benefits. And also they read for the on-time availability and real-world relevance. So for you guys who also want to check out this study, let me just quickly pull out the title for this article. It is Romance-Themed Novels Influenced on Relationship Satisfaction. Again, this is from the International Journal of Literature Studies. Again, all my book people coming through for me. Thank you, people who do this research. I couldn't do it without you. So, Katz, along with our buddy George Gibner, hailing from the cultivation theory, is all over this theoretical background section of this article. And it's also in the discussion results as well, and kind of explains why these girls are saying what they're saying. So, quote, the study's analytical framework draws upon the cultivation theory of George Gerbner. Bulmer and Katz's uses and gratifications theory, and the psychological reader response theory by Norman Holland to elucidate the influences and impacts underpinning the study's 3 subproblems. And also, another comment from this article is that, moreover, Bulmer and Katz's uses and gratification theory highlights the active role of audiences as media members who seek to satisfy their needs. This theory emphasizes that audiences select media types to fulfill their unique requirements, aligning their media choices with their needs, thereby rendering each selection purpose-driven and goal-oriented. getting into the meat of this document, this report, you want to know what these girls are saying about why they read romance. And what these researchers found in these one-on-one interviews that they conducted either on like Google Meets or Zoom or whatever. Like, this is a pretty recent study that came out in the last like couple few years. It's pretty good stuff, again, for academic papers as they go. I mean, who knows? I could have been talking about microbes. Good God. Here's the deal. This is the findings. The reasons why female college students read romance-themed novels is, number 1, to align interest, number 2, entertainment, number 3, social influence, number 4, for educational value, and number 5, for therapeutic purposes. And the experiences of college female students engaging them to read romance-themed novels is, number 1, to be the on-time availability of, this media, and also the baseline for real-world situations that these books provide. So the impact of the romance-themed novels on female college students' relationship satisfaction, the relationships that we have in the real world, these books allow us, from what these girls are saying, establishing a strong emotional bond and also, provide enlightened disposition. Again, fascinating stuff. Who knew? Yeah, some other parts that I wanted to, just share of what I liked about this study is specifically what these girls were saying. And again, the main question asked was to explain why they read romance-themed novels, again, during these one-on-one interviews. So there was about a little over 10 participants, I think. And so this one girl answered in the section Align Interest. I read romance-themed novels because I like the plot and how the characters go. And I think it's very interesting to me, since I grew up watching more on love stories like soap operas. I mean, romance-themed operas and romance novels. So I also want to read a book similar to what I watched. And another girl in this aligned interest setting that, quote, like, even though how I try myself to try another or different genre, my heart is always looking for romance, because it's like I can fit like myself, my interests and my preferences. And then this next part of, these little overarching themes is entertainment. So this participant number 3, so those two quotes that I just gave was participant 1 and participant 10. And in this entertainment section, the girls are saying, participant 3 says, I read romance-themed novels for entertainment. Cut and dry. Thank you. I'm sure the researchers love that one. And participant 6 said, so the reason I read romance-themed novels is because I find it entertaining and all about love and relationships. I have fun reading it. Guys, why do we do anything? We should live our lives by this rule. Why do we do anything? To have fun. So in the social influence category, participant 7 said, actually, romance-themed novels started during high school. Then it just came from my mother's, and she likes Precious Hearts romances. Those novels became my basis if I read them. Then I liked reading back then, but in a different genre. But my mother, based on her stories she told me. So essentially, it was this girl's relationship with her mother. And participant 4 said, so, I started reading romance-themed novels when I was in high school, around 7th grade, because in our time, at the time, Wattpad was very popular. And I think the reason why I read it is because it was a trend at the time, and because I was an introvert kind of person, so I loved to read in my free time. And the trend there at the time, which is most likely where they are romance themed. On this girl is saying that she started reading romance because there was a lot of romance on Wattpad and it was trendy to read Wattpad. So there you go. And in the educational section, participant 2 says that the more you read not only romance-themed novels, the more your vocabulary will widen. Plus, you will learn a lot of new words. In addition to that, you'll become a more hopeless romantic. Yes. Yes, participant 2. I too agree. And participant 9 says that, okay, so it really motivates and inspires me to read romance because of their content. For example, the content in a romance novel is not boring. For something like educational, you can get ideas for education, and then the story has a sense that there is something within the story that can be applied to ourselves and to our relationships with someone and friends. And in the therapeutic section, these girls are saying that there's actually 3 people that they shared in this section. So participant 8 said, I feel like it's filling the gap of loneliness. And that's why I read, romance-themed novels. And participant 5 answered the same question with, when I get bored, reading is my best therapy. So let's just say for the pastime. Yeah. Oh gosh, I feel this response deeply in my bones. Yeah, when I'm bored, I read books too. And participant 11 added that the thing that inspired me is the relationships around me that I see are like toxic and chaotic. And it's kind of fed my mind that all things in relationships is difficult. So in that way, I read romance novels because, as we all know, it is like a fairy tale. So that's why for cleansing my mind and heart. This girl is saying that she reads romance novels because all of the relationships in the real world around her are toxic and awful. She reads the romance novels because they're just cleansing to the heart. You know, sometimes when I talk to other people who read a lot of books, like they go either between genres or subgenres, and they are like, yeah, I just need a palate cleanser, so I'll read a romance. I think that romances are important because they, offer this space of, giving us what we expect and just letting us relax and just take some time for ourselves and not think too hard about it and be, all just high key all the time. It's like tone it down just a little bit. Like sometimes we just need that calm space. So on-time availability, this particularly has a reference to uses and gratifications, saying that this focuses on the needs and wants of people that meet their satisfaction. And it's, the availability of the book. And participant 2 says, quote, what, like before when online classes were not yet started? No, during online classes. Like I can read at least 3 books in a month. Like that's my goal so I can buy a new one. That's my usual pattern. I like to read 1 book per week. And then currently I only read during the vacant time and mostly during nighttime. But before I used to read every day, every night and until dawn. End quote. I also feel this one. You go through these periods of not reading books at all, but when you do want to read, you want the media there, either in your hands physically right away, or I'm a Kindle Unlimited person and I just, immediately just boom, download the book because I just want to keep reading. I want my media, damn it. And baseline for a real world situation. So I'm going to read a little bit of this forward in the section. So this theme describes participants' awareness and establishing limits between reality and fiction. Participants are aware that romance-themed novels are fiction, but they also want to believe and think that at some point in their lives, they can experience the things they read in romance-themed novels. And also participants have read romance-themed novels because they can relate and apply them to real life. So participant 1 replied with, how do you say this? I believe in it so much because I know that like this character or this book is just a buildup. Although it may be close to real life, or it is real life, being depicted, I don't get myself so much on it. It's kind of scary because I may absorb whatever the character is. So it's kind of scary for me. Probably it just affects my point of view personally, because there are books that have really helped me share my mind, that does not help me change my point of view. So I think it's interesting that this participant 1 is saying that it's just a little scary that we are kind of absorbing all of this. And I agree that there's a little tinge of like, if the break between reality and fiction happens, yeah, there's going to be a problem. But if you're able to, it's like, oh, this is a fantasy. All of these books in the genre are fantasy to some extent, because again, these are fictional people. This is, not going to happen. These books are not memoirs. So participant 6 shared, for me, the specific factors of reading romance-themed novels are nothing, because for me, it really doesn't affect me, because I know that what I read is just fantasy, like literal fantasy, because it is just for pastime. Like if I have nothing to do, then I can just not finish reading it since I'm busy at work. Again, the way we use these books, to either like fill time or to, entertain us or that kind of thing, it's fantasy. It's like we're watching Game of Thrones, we're watching whatever narrative written, like one of my favorite romances that was taken off the streaming service was North and South, which is also a book. But yeah, so we understand that yes, it looks kind of like real life, but it's not. So establishing a strong emotional bond is another subcategory of this study, and participant 3 shared how romance-themed novels affect her relationship, and she stated, I believe I managed to create them a strong bond with a healthier relationship I have with my boyfriend. So she was able to, read these novels and understand how, just people bond, and she's able to implement just some of those things that she's read in her own real relationship, and it worked. And participant 8 answered the same question with, it affects our relationship, as in, her and her partner. So actually, it is not that toxic. Small fights lead to breakups, but no. However, it is more likely communication. It really affects our communication, and our relationship would work by communicating with each other. And participant 16 shared that my experiences really apply to my partner based on what I read in romance novels. I get ideas and set standards on how to handle my relationship. So this is when I was like, the mic was dropped when I was reading this study, and I'm just like, oh, goodness. Like, these books have real world impacts, and it's not like this reading of romance novels like will make females like more wafy and frivolous and whatever. It's giving us a framework for expecting better communication with our partners. Because as I keep reading this genre, I find more and more so that the conflict isn't, all the literature types of conflict, which is like conflict with self, conflict with nature, conflict with, whatever specific antagonist, or conflict with, with circumstances. And I find that, most of the times the issues happen in these novels is because of communication, and communication happening badly. And that's when shit hits the fan, and there's a misunderstanding. And that this participant 16 says that she gets ideas and sets standards to place into her own real relationship. And I'm just like, oh, this chef's kiss. So in conclusion, review, whatever of this study, I found this study really helpful in, understanding my, why I love romance novels, and I'll be getting into that. But I was really inspired to also read this because I find that, romance novels come with the stigma of it's like, oh, they're not serious. Oh, they're not, academic stuff to study. But it's like, hey, guys, we got International Journal of Literature Studies up in here. Way to go, guys. And now I'm talking about this at the University of Wisconsin River Falls. What do you know? Getting class credit for this. Who would have thought? So I, just overall really enjoyed reading through this study because a lot of little details too that I can't list them all, everything that I highlighted in this PDF that I have. I color coded it with different shades of pink. It's such a girly move. Anyway, so I really enjoyed reading this study for the fact, and I would encourage you guys to also, if you have access to either, if you're a student and you have access to, reading some of these journals, or, just going out and educating yourself or finding, a thought leader in the field to follow on social media, I really encourage you guys to, broaden your horizon. Again, because part of, reading romance novels is sometimes education. And I hope that we all, I guess, get educated together. But I did really find this article good and meaningful. And I wasn't expecting that. I was just expecting this to be another PDF that I'm just going to use, check off the list, make sure that all my claims that I'm saying are shipshape and I'm not talking out the side of my ass. But again, I really do encourage you guys, if you want to track down this study, it's a good one. Again, looking at uses and gratifications, it lists basically a lot of the main things that us girlies, who do read romance novels would probably just assume. But it's always also good to have science to back it up. So, my third section for this episode now is the most important part of the show. Why do I read romance novels? This is the real question that I want to answer. And I'm going to use it with the framework of, either just some things that I remember from the article that stuck out to me, or this formulaic writing style. Because one of the big main things that I read romance novels for is because the genre is so formulaic. I can't stand having uncertainty. Either, I understand life, everything is uncertain, but just to have just a little tiny bit of control, and especially when I use media, I insist upon having control and understanding that I'm investing my time in reading this book. I want to know that I'm not going to get to the end of this book and not be satisfied. Because that's what Uses and Gratifications is all about. You don't want to invest in a media and then not be satisfied. Because, again, why do we do anything? To have fun. With romance novels, there is a formulaic writing style, and it's encouraged this repeated socialization of romance. And the person who, came up with this formulaic writing style and put a pen to paper and made all this list is, in 1986, Helen May Stirk came up with this 9-step basic list of within the, a romance story of why, of all the little steps of writing a romance novel. And I'm just going to go over them real quick for you because I found this little tidbit just so interesting, again, to just have a little bit of science to back up my feelings and validate me. So number one, it's the meet cute. So think, this love at first sight moment in the book where it's like you get past the exposition, you learn about like how crappy the girl's car is, that whole thing. So you first, the characters meet and it's like this spark that happens. And number two is the complication step. So the female main character and the male character face the dilemma of the relationship. And in this phase of the story, it's a little bit more male dominated, where he takes a little bit more control in most cases of the stories. And in this third step, the circumstantial proximity, the woman, tries to distance herself from the female main character, tries to distance herself from the main male character. And she tries to go it alone. And through this, push and pull of this proximity, you go on to this fourth phase of escalation of attraction. So this woman, the female main character, she's, having these feelings and she's pissed about them. She's just like, I hate this guy, but I have feelings for him. That whole part of, these stories where she's, has these negative emotions, but still, goes and establishes this relationship with, the main male character. And the fifth step is congruence. So the couple experience, this moment of experience of contentment with each other. And it's like, I kind of like to think about like this is, their honeymoon phase or their, how do you describe it? The honeymoon, or because I'm reading a formulaic type of literature, I'm like, this is the calm before the storm. So after congruence is number 6. I wrote this in bold capital letters. Betrayal. The developed trust that these characters have built throughout the book, this trust is shattered. Broken bits all over the ground. Someone call clean up for aisle 3. So, this trust is destroyed in this betrayal part of the book or story. And you move on to the 7th step, which is the crisis. This is where fate, or, the author, who's kind of playing God here a little bit, plays a part keeping the couple together. Like, let's say trust is shattered, they move apart a little bit, but fate brings them back together into this proximity where they have to acknowledge each other. And in this crisis, there was another, I didn't write this down, so I may get this a little bit wrong in my notes, but the concept of the crisis is that, typically both of these characters realize that they need the strengths of the other to succeed in the relationship and potentially getting over, the whatever like plot device of, whatever plot device that is, that they're fighting against, that whole thing. So step number 8 is the union. And this is the beloved HEA, the happily ever after ending. So this is, where you get a little bit of conclusion and, everyone comes together after, this congruence, betrayal, crisis, we're finally picking up the pieces. And number 9 is the coda. And the coda is this end part of the book. And I was really excited to have this, I read these books, but I don't have the words to explain it because, again, I'm constantly a student. I constantly need to know things because a lot of people are smarter than me, which I appreciate. But this last step, number 9, the coda, the misunderstanding verifies. So again, this misunderstanding that they just experienced through the betrayal and crisis, the misunderstanding that they had verifies the love for each other. So going back to my comment a little bit before where I said, where, all these books, part of the issue is that the communications is, they have bad communications, and that's where they, experience a lot of issues in the relationship. The misunderstanding and, this resolution of this misunderstanding and, getting all your ducks in order and figuring that out verifies this love that they have for each other. And I find it super cute that it's, this cute form of communication and good communication that is the vehicle which allows for the love that these, two characters have to flourish together. And, I will say that, again, the use that I have for romance novels is that in understanding, I have learned that, any relationship needs to have good communication. Okay, my fine listeners, thank you for joining me on a foray into the science of why us readers even do romance, according to the scientists and doctoral people. So Katz's Uses and Gratifications Theory really helps us break down that readers have needs, and we fulfill those needs with reading romance novels. The Journal of Literature Studies honestly really was a good walkthrough after I ate my Skittles and had a cultivation theory and uses and gratifications lecture explained to me by my professor. That was very helpful. Thank you for all the work that you do. And congratulations on your tenure. It has taken me this many semesters to finally have time to take some of your classes. It truly has been a bucket list semester. So all right, guys, thank you for listening to this episode of Gently Read. If you want to follow and subscribe, that will give me warm, fluttery heart palpitations. The cute, fuzzy ones, not the bad ones that you have to go to the hospital for. But you can also follow more of my creative work at Aurora Fenzl on YouTube alongside this podcast. If I get more views and engagement on YouTube as a platform, I will open up more social media channels for you guys and myself. See you guys in the next episode.